Good morning. Welcome to our Engineering Technology Education Program Update virtual session. Most of you would be sitting in the Gold House right now, and we would be doing this in person, but here we are. I'm in my dining room. You are, I have no idea where you are, but I wanted to make sure, and we as an Office of Career and Technical Education wanted to make sure that you received information as it relates to the 2021 school year. Lots of things up in the air, lots of changes, some updates that we wanted to make you aware of. And this session will be specifically for middle school and high school engineering tech ed and our program area, the 6 pathways at the high school level, the middle school courses that we have. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Mark Harrell. I am the Engineering Technology Education Program Consultant and the TSA State Advisor for Kentucky. I work out of the Department of Education here in Kentucky in the Office of Career and Technical Education. We are using a platform called Microsoft Teams Live Event. So this will be more of a seamless presentation where there won't be interruptions with people being able to unmute themselves. There is an entire question and answer section built into Teams, and I will answer any and all questions that come in that area of Teams. It should be on your right-hand side if you're using the Teams app. And I'll answer the questions at the conclusion. We'll stay on as long as that takes. All of that will be recorded as well as what you're hearing right now. So I'll send out the link by Monday. So my goal is by Monday to send you a PD certificate for attending this. That will be based on the Teams participation list. So when you join this call, it should have either prompted you for your name or email address, or it automatically captured it. If you don't receive a PD certificate by Monday, please shoot me an email and I will make sure you get that for attending this live session. I'll also send out a PDF version of the slides that you're seeing. You'll be able to click the links in here. Really use this document as kind of a one-stop shop for any and all links as it relates to our program area. So please use the question and answer section as something pops into your head as we go through these slides, and then we'll go through all those questions at the end. So a quick review on where we are as far as high school engineering technology education career pathways. We currently have 218 pathways as TEDS reported for the 1920 school year. 122 high schools across the state are offering an engineering technology education pathway or pathways. We have over 8,000 students enrolled in our pathways, and those are unduplicated students. So students that are enrolled in multiple pathways would not count more than once. So 8,000 plus students across the state. You can see we pretty much cover the entire state, and we have over 1,000 more students in our pathways than we did in 17-18. So our pathways are growing. That's exciting. You'll also be able to click on that link you see at the bottom to access that map. I'll kind of show you what that map is capable of doing here in a minute on another slide. As far as pathways, so if we include duplicates, just so you know that there are 35 schools that offer an aerospace engineering pathway, 1,400 plus students in that particular pathway. Automation engineering, over 2,000 students in 25 schools. You can see civil engineering, 45 schools, almost 3,000 students in that pathway. Electrical electronics, 22 schools, 1,600 students enrolled in that pathway. Engineering design, our most popular pathway, over 4,000 students in 29 schools. Most popular is in the number of students enrolled. Engineering, or mechanical engineering, sorry, 40 schools, 3,500 students. And then our CTE hybrids that we'll talk about here in a minute, over 1,600 students. Those hybrids are really expanded across the state. 17 different schools are now offering those CTE hybrids, so that's exciting. Middle school, you also have a program map. Once again, I'll show you here on the, I think it's the next slide, what these maps do. So it's not just a dot on a map, but it's actually interactive. So you can see there's a link down there when you receive this slide deck. You'll be able to click that link and interact with this map. 139 middle school STEM programs. This is according to Infinite Campus data. So if you're using our course codes, I can pull that out of Infinite Campus and it'll tell me which schools are using which course codes. As long as you're using our course codes, you're considered an active middle school STEM program. So I think Andrew's on the call. Andrew, I used you as my example. That's good, bad, or indifferent, maybe. But Henry County High School, you can see. So once I go on and click on one of these dots on the map, it'll give me the address, what the district name is, what TSA region they're in, what pathway or pathways they're offering. So some schools may be offering 3 or 4 or 5 pathways. Gives me the teacher's name, the principal's name, and the school number. So if there's a school nearby you that maybe you want to reach out to, you'll be able to click on that link, click on their little bubble on the map, pull up their name, look them up in the global, and shoot them an email so you can get in touch with them. If for some reason you can't find their email address, I'd be glad to help you get connected with someone nearby or someone that you're trying to connect with. Happy to make those connections for you. But like I said, these maps are interactive. I update these in October of every year. So once TED's data has been entered, once Infinite Campus is kind of set for the year for middle school data. If you click on your link in the map after October and it's not accurate, please let me know. Maybe a teacher has left, maybe a principal has changed. The data is only as good as what I can dig up. So if you click on your school or click on another school and notice something doesn't look right or a pathway is wrong, please let me know that after we update this. Most of this data comes out of TED's. So if your TED's data is wrong, then your pathway data will also be wrong on our program map. We'll briefly touch on the Technology Student Association, but after lunch, we have a call specifically for TSA updates. You can see our membership has continued to climb. Record membership again this year, almost 4,600 student members enrolled in TSA. You can see the map down there. That's also an interactive map that we use. That's on our TSA, the KentuckyTSA.org website if you want to go out and look at schools near you. Blue are high schools, red are middle schools, and then yellow dots are where we host our regional competitions, or at least where we tried to before March happened. Just a couple other things that happened this year that or should have happened. So there were 2 technical upgrade trainings that we should have offered. One was going to be a lab safety workshop where we brought teachers to EKU's lab and help them understand how to use power tools safely and then communicate and instruct students to do so as well. Unfortunately, that was canceled due to COVID-19 and some coronavirus concerns with being safe. We were supposed to host a 3D printing workshop with Somerset Community College. That was a very popular workshop last year. We planned on offering it again. Unfortunately, again, was canceled. 2 trainings that we did offer. Some of you on the call, I'm sure, were a part of these trainings. Both were done virtually as best we could. So the utilizing drone training was a 2-day workshop we hosted in Microsoft Teams, where teachers were shipped a DJI Tello drone and they learned how to use those in the comfort of their own home as best they could. Once again, virtual is hard to replicate the impact that we can have in person, but we tried the best we could. And then we also hosted a drone safety and regulations workshop. The drone engineer from the Kentucky Department actually ran that training. We had several teachers after the training actually go and get their drone certification, their FAA remote pilot certificate. So now they're commercial drone pilots after hosting that training. So that was exciting. If you have ideas on technical upgrade trainings that you would like to see, maybe it's a piece of software, maybe it's a piece of equipment, something new and up and coming that we need to start preparing teachers to be comfortable with. We provide the funding source for these. So we will, if you have an idea in the next couple of weeks, shoot that to me in an email or a text or give me a call and we can kind of talk that out. We're hoping by next summer we'll be able to go back to in person, but we still want to plan for an optimistic summer of 21. Some virtual PDs coming up. These are all posted in our Google Classroom. So if you're not a member of our Google Classroom, you can see the link, or sorry, the code down there at the bottom. So you just go to classroom.google.com and enter that class code, and that'll get you into our course. It has a ton of resources in there. A lot of what we post right now over the summer are virtual PD offerings. So you can see there's a couple sessions here. There's one that already happened, or actually is going on right now. At 1 o'clock, we have a collaborative robotics that's going on. These are all free to join. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., that should say 10 a.m. I don't think it's a 10 p.m. session. 10 a.m. there's a mechatronics PD going on. And then Thursday, you can see from 9:30 to 11, we have a PLC professional development. How to join these sessions is all in our Google Classroom. So if you haven't joined Google Classroom, I strongly recommend that. A lot of what we do now is, instead of sending you an email with a lot of this information, we're just sending it through Google Classroom, which then automatically emails you. So if you're not part of the class, you may not be getting a lot of our PD offerings that are out there, a lot of our new resources that we're posting in that Google Classroom, which we'll go through here in a little bit. So looking forward at what's coming for 2021, all these links will be available for you just to click on to get you exactly where you need to be, instead of Googling or trying to hunt that down. So today we're going to cover the program of studies as it relates to 2021. Middle school courses will also be included. We'll talk about a new section of the KDE website dedicated to middle school career resources. Talk about industry certifications as they relate to our high school pathways. We'll talk about Perkins 5, which has some pretty substantial changes in it for the 2021 school year, as well as the 21-22 school year. We'll talk about CTE accountability and some changes that are coming to that because of some legislation that was passed this past session. Talk about minimum graduation requirements. Some big important updates coming for end of program assessments, which we haven't had since they were called COSA, if you remember COSA tests or COSA assessments. Talk about some dual credit opportunities, especially as they relate to EKU and what they're doing. We'll talk about KEYS money and how your students can then get access to maybe additional funds that they may not been able to access in the past. Some new things as it relates to career studies and financial literacy standards that really could play an important role in your work. Talk about the Google Classroom specifically, and finally end up with COVID-19 resources, kind of a one slide where you can go click and find exactly what you need when you need it. So jumping right into pathways, I know this slide's a little bit overwhelming, but these are all pulled out of the program of studies. I tried to create a chart that kind of help you see the commonalities when it comes to certain pathways and the differences when it comes to others. So you can see the aerospace engineering pathway really hasn't changed, other than we added a brand new introduction to 3D printing technology. So this is a course that we've put out for this year, new for this year. Particularly for juniors and seniors, you can see it exists in all the pathways you see on the screen here. At the onset of that course, and we've partnered with the manufacturing program area, so you can see the course number is a little bit different, but you do have rights to teach that course, even though it's not a 2100 course code. We made sure that you have access to teach that course with your certification. This course will also be developed into a dual credit class with Somerset Community College. So be looking for more details on that as they become available. Doesn't have to be offered as dual credit, but could be. You can see down there at the bottom, the only other change to our pathways on these three as it relates to aerospace, automation, and civil is we've added a new computer science course that's not AP. So we have a lot of schools out there that want to offer a computer science course, but do not want to offer AP for a variety of reasons. So now you can offer as an upper level course. You can see the ORs down there, so you couldn't offer AP Computer Science A and Computational Thinking, but if you wanted a computer science course in your pathway, you now have an option that is not AP specific. Moving on to the electrical electronics engineering pathway, the engineering design pathway, and the mechanical engineering pathway. Same changes as we just talked about. Still have engineering 1, engineering 2, moving into a specialization course, which then moves into, could be co-op, internship, capstone. And then we have the 3D printing course aligned in all of these pathways, as well as the non-AP related computer science course. So hopefully that makes sense. Our pathways are really firming up to be really strong pathways, aligning to post-secondary, aligning to what industry is asking for. Something new and exciting that we have is the engineering track SIP code or career pathway now. So track stands for Tech Ready Apprenticeships for Careers in Kentucky, or what the acronym, because we all love acronyms in education, is track. This is a pathway that you build out with your employer partner, very individualized for maybe 1 or 2 students, or maybe even a small cohort of students. And that may be that your local industry, I'm going to pick on Andrew again in Henry County. Maybe Andrew's local industry says, we need students to have welding experience, and we need them to have electrical and electronics experience, and we need them to have some more mechanically minded engineering experience. So maybe Andrew works with that local employer partner. He builds out a pathway with them sitting in the driver's seat saying, we need a student to take a welding course. We need them to take an electrical electronics engineering course. We need them to take a mechanical engineering course. And all the while, they're going to be working for us in a paid co-op, getting hours that count towards a registered apprenticeship. That pathway that they build out unique for that student or group of students, minimum of 3 courses. You can see that down there at that bottom bullet. So this isn't you just pick a pathway off the shelf and the industry says, yeah, good enough. This is you work directly with the industry, building out a pathway that makes the most sense for that student, can cross over multiple program areas. So it's a really unique experience, but also very valuable for the students to earn some money during their high school experience, and also log hours towards their registered apprenticeship. When they graduate high school, those hours can transfer into from a youth apprenticeship or a pre-apprenticeship on into a registered apprenticeship program. If you need more information on track, I can put you in contact with Mary Taylor, who oversees that program area. She can help you and your local employer really build out something that fits specifically for your needs as well as the industry needs. So there is now a SIP code that you can enter into TEDS if you have students that are interested, or an employer interested in building out an engineering track pathway. Talk briefly about the hybrid pathways. Like I said, these are really growing in popularity across the state. What these are really doing is blurring the lines between traditional CTE and our engineering or STEM programs. So if you are nearby or live or exist in a career and tech center, if you think about a career and tech center, maybe has an automotive program, you're teaching engineering at the local high school, or maybe they're at the local career and tech center or the area career and tech center. You partner with your automotive teacher, students take a combination of your courses and their courses, and then they are actually completing a pathway called automotive engineering. Or you can see if we move down into CAD, for example, or manufacturing, or some construction courses, you can see here. So if you have those close relationships or want to develop those close relationships with your automotive, manufacturing, CAD, construction program areas, there are ways that students can flow between your pathway and their pathway, but they can still be considered completers, still complete a course sequence that makes sense. So that's really exciting. And like I said, these are really starting to grow across the state as schools and districts learn more about them. Middle school, I mentioned a whole web page dedicated to middle school career studies and career resources. A couple of the links that I wanted to draw your attention to specifically. There are brand new standards just released, I believe last week or the week before, sometime this month. All the days seem to blur together anymore, but academic standards for career studies. So this is built out for each grade band. These used to be called vocational studies, if you remember. They've changed the name to career studies, revamped really what's built into them. And so that's going to be a great resource moving forward. Basically minimum content standards that students should learn within each grade band. Brand new again, middle school exploratory tasks. I'll show you what one of these looks like here on the next slide. But these are optional tasks that you can really use to promote career-specific skills and knowledge for students. Just a great another tool in your toolbox for you. And then, like I said, on the website, you'll also see this planning and implementation toolkit, which is a great PDF document that helps you understand how do you explain career studies to students, how do you explain it to parents, how do you explain it to administrators. A great document. This link will take you right to it when you click on it, when you receive the PDF. So like I said, exploratory tasks, I pulled out the STEM exploratory tasks, but this document actually covers all 16 career clusters. It basically helps students in a short little document understand what careers fall under each career cluster, and even gives you some ideas on some activities you can do with your students. So I just took this screenshot. You'll be able to see all of these when you go out to the website. There's also a parent guide. That's always something that needs to be discussed with parents, is why these careers are important and what these careers are ultimately. Moving on to middle school valid courses. This list has not changed. We have some 2100 course codes you can see here and some 219 course codes. If you can teach one of these, you can teach all of these. We made sure that that was built out as we expanded our program offering. Make sure you're using these course codes in Infinite Campus, so then we know that you are an active middle school STEM program. We pull that data, like I said, in October to update our teacher directory. It also updates our program map. So to make sure you're included in the communication going forward, make sure your counselors are using the course codes you see on your screen in Infinite Campus. Moving on to industry recognized certificates. This, as you know, this is kind of old news, but I always want to reiterate, in 2017, Senate Bill 1 made a lot of changes. One of those is how industry certs show up on the list or disappear off the list. So the local WIBs, which you may be familiar with, Workforce Investment Boards, they work with local industry to compile a list of industry certs that would be valuable based on the industry. They then send those up to the KWIB, which is the governing board over the WIBs. We work with them to edit and refine the list, and then we publish that list annually, typically in the spring for the following school year. So the list for 2021 is out there. I want to show you that list here in a second. A couple of things as it relates to industry certs. March brought on a very interesting time, not just professionally, but also personally. We had a lot of students with a lot of loose ends that were never really tied up that graduated during that 2019-2020 spring. If you have students that previously graduated, they are allowed to come back to your school based on your reopening guidance and sit for industry certification. So if you have a student that was probably proficient in Autodesk Inventor, for example, they could come back, use your licenses. As long as they were previously purchased, they should still be valid, and they can actually sit. A lot of times students need those industry credentials if they're going straight into the workforce. Sometimes it opens doors for scholarship opportunities. So if you have students, they are allowed to come back if that's something your district allows, and sit for those assessments this fall or winter or even potentially next spring. As far as 2021 and the flexibility that comes along with industry certs, there is still a pot of money that schools have access to and districts have access to for free and reduced lunch students to take a free industry certification. So if you have free and reduced lunch students that want to take industry certs, there is a pot of money that your district has access to offset that cost for those students. Vendor virtual proctoring is allowable this year. This was not allowable last spring. A lot of our vendors have done a great job of getting their virtual proctoring available. So you can see there's a couple caveats. Virtual proctoring is allowable if in-person courses are not occurring in your district. Virtual proctoring is allowable if students or parents and guardians choose not to send their students to school. And what this means is, I'm going to use Autodesk again as an example. That's one of our more popular industry certs. So if you have a student that is not in school, either because the district chose to not host in school or the parents or guardian or student chose to not send their student to school, they can work with Certiport. Certiport has an entire virtual proctoring program set up, and they can actually take that industry certification virtually for this school year. You can see Perkins State Free and Reduced Lunch Certification CTE funds can be used on virtual proctoring. So funds, you can use that funds to pay for that free and reduced lunch student to take that certification. And then TED's data entry will be required just as it would typically. There's also a document up here that I kind of jumped over and I shouldn't have, but there's a lab reopening guidance document. This will help you understand how to reopen your lab safely and talk about sanitation and that sort of thing. So make sure you look at that document when you get a chance. When it comes to program-specific industry certifications, all of these certifications you see that are not highlighted are continuing to be on the list just as they always have been. You can see at the top we have a brand new industry certification that our industry base has told us is valuable. The WIBs agreed. This certification is now on the list. It's ArcGIS Desktop Certification, and it exists for the engineering pathway as well as the engineering design pathway. So if you're offering one of those two pathways, a new option for you to test your students as far as industry certifications. The rest of the list you see here exists in a multiple grouping of career pathways. So make sure you look at that list of your pathway and which of these certifications align. I am excited to mention that all industry certs on this list are considered high demand for the 2021 school year. So if your students pass one of these certifications, which are considered high demand, your students in your school will actually receive 1.25 quarter points in the state accountability model versus 1 point for a cert that's not considered high demand. So we're excited. I want to thank those of you that have worked with your local industry who then worked with your local WIB to get those industry certs considered high demand. Once again, this is an annual process. So just because you see a high demand cert on that list this year doesn't mean it will remain. So we do need to continue working with our advisory boards, having them talk to our WIBs saying that these certs are continuing to be valued. Please don't reach out to the WIBs yourself, but this needs to come from industry and help them understand which certifications are the most valuable on our list. Here's just a picture so you can see which color-coded section you are a part of when it comes to the WIBs. And then this next slide here, if you live in the Lincoln Trail area, which would be Hardin County, Breckenridge, Marion, etc., who to reach out to, who to put your industry folks in contact with. If there's an industry cert that's not on that list that I showed that maybe you want to have on the list, once again, work with your local industry, have them take that to the WIB. The WIBs then take it to the KWIB. The KWIB then works with us. So your best bet is to work with your local industry and have them discuss those needs with their local WIB. Moving on to Perkins and Perkins 5, lots of changes coming, so this is an important section. There's a couple new things that are coming that I wanted to make you familiar with. One is you starting in the 21-22 school year, you need to have a secondary to post-secondary pathway alignment document created. This is now required in Perkins. It will be due in May of 21. It will be submitted through TEDS, and that's why it's vital. Make sure your career pathways are accurate in TEDS. If they're not, and you try to submit a document that doesn't align the same pathway, then you're going to run into hiccups. But by May of 21, for the 21-22 school year, you need to have a secondary to post-secondary document created that aligns what you're doing at the high school to maybe your local post-secondary partner, or maybe a state, maybe UK, maybe Louisville, maybe EKU, Murray, what have you, or your local KCTCS. We're going to be working on these all fall, winter, and spring to help you with temp. You can just plug in what that's specific to your needs. We've already developed and mapped out an EKU one. I'll show you here in a minute what that looks like. And then also another big piece to Perkins 5 is you must have a CTSO aligned to your program area. So a career tech student organization must be aligned, and that will once again be reported through TEDS. So TSA is probably the most closely aligned, but if you do Skills USA, that would also suffice. And so that's something you need to be thinking about, and that's going to be also 21-22. Kind of gives you a year to get comfortable with working on which CTSO you think most closely aligns with your program, getting resources ready, and then getting your chapter active by 21-22. We'll talk about size, scope, and quality here in a second, but this link takes you directly out to that document. Let's jump back real quick to secondary, post-secondary pathways. So these are Word documents that you'll be creating in partnership with a post-secondary institution. You just need to have one on the books, and it will be related, you can see, to what you're doing at the high school level and how that helps students get ready for post-secondary. So you can see we have 9th through 12th grade on this first slide. This document, like I said, has already been created. It has a sequence of courses here. You can tweak this to fit what you're doing. This model we actually build out as a dual credit model as well. So you can see there's a lot of dual credit opportunities for the EKU as they get to be juniors and seniors. When you come over here under the technical core, taking some technical dual credit as well. So the drones dual credit course is 102. And then over here, we like to list out some exit ramps for students. So what happens when they get to senior year? So they're going to graduate with their high school diploma. They may get the Autodesk Inventor certification, which actually articulates into EKU as their CAD class. So that's 3 additional college credits. So you can see if a student follows this sequence of courses on your screen, takes these dual credit courses. So this is maybe English, a history class, a music class, some gen ed dual credit. They could actually graduate with 24 dual credit hours, as well as 3 more for that CAD class. So this helps students and counselors and parents understand what that progression of courses looks like. If we flip to the next slide, I know there's a lot of information here. I'll send you the PowerPoint, which will have a link to the Word document to this. This shows you freshman year of college, what they're going to be taking junior year. You can see by the time they're sophomores, grade 14, they're actually going to graduate with an associate's degree if they take this progression of courses. By the time they're juniors, they'll graduate with their bachelor's degree if they follow this progression. And by the time they're seniors, what would be seniors in college, they're actually going to graduate with their master's degree. So if you put them on this track, they max out their dual credit, they can actually graduate with their master's degree within 4 years. But the nice thing about this pathway that we've built out is it does show them those exit ramps. So maybe they just want 2 years and graduate with an associate's, so they can exit here. Maybe they just want their bachelor's degree and they can exit junior year after 3 years. Or if they want to continue on through, they could actually graduate in 4 years of college with a master's degree. So this document is already available for you. And you'll be able to access it. If you want to work with your local post-secondary partner, I highly well. You build out your templates. It'd be great if you send those to me so I can have kind of a repository. So if somebody else wants to work with BCTC, for example, I can just send them the template that's already been started. It'll just make all of it easier for all of us. Moving on to a big change in Perkins 5, we have size, scope, and quality. So 3 components, and you can see the definition of what those mean on your screen here. So as it relates to size, KDE's definition is 1 complete program of study in the program area is offered in the school. So thinking about engineering, you'll need to have that built out. That's that program of studies that we just talked about, multiple entry and exit points for continuing education. But you need to have that for the program area. If you have more than 1 program area, then each one will need to complete a program of study. So if you're offering 3 pathways, that does not mean that you need 3 pathway documents. For the program area of engineering, you will need to have that secondary to primary document created. When it comes to scope, you can see that this is really relating to industry certifications or articulated college credit, dual credit opportunities, could be academic or technical courses, and also work-based learning needs to be kind of built out in this section as well. This is all part of the Perkins plan that the school and the district will submit. Finally, we have quality. So your program needs to be of sufficient size that offers 4 or more technical credits. So this is a change from the old language. So it does you need to have at least 4 courses, 4 technical credits. A course equals a credit. So at least 4 courses in your secondary program. You need to have post-secondary connections. So once again, that document really maps that out. But also it could be your end of program assessment that we'll talk about here in a minute. Could be aligned to articulated credit or should be aligned to it. And then also needs to be your program, as far as quality goes, needs to be aligned to those industry recognized certificates, which are certifications, which is already done for you. You should have an active or have to have an active advisory panel or a partnership team or whatever you call that, where you have a group of industry, parents, students, maybe post-secondary or other CTE teachers involved, just helping make decisions that impact the program as a whole. You should and need to have a certified teacher or appropriately endorsed teacher. So if you're on this call, hopefully you are already appropriately endorsed. That's either through EPSB or maybe you've taken a Project Lead the Way training and you've sent the certificate in to get a waiver for your certification. And then once again, you have to have a CTSO aligned starting in 21-22 that best fits your program area. And then finally, as far as quality goes, as it relates to Perkins 5, you need to be supported by current labor market data. That's very easy for our program. Because our industry certs especially are high demand, but we also have a lot of data that shows that in the next 5 years, engineers and engineering technicians are going to be even more in demand than they currently are. So if you ever need data, if someone reaches out and says, do you have labor market data? There are a couple of different places you can get that. One is just shoot me an email and I'd be glad to provide it to you. You can also go to the KY Stats website and look at their future workforce forecasting tool, which is a very powerful tool. It shows you exactly where the jobs are going to be in the next 5 years and what those occupations are going to be. And there's a couple other resources that I can point you to as well. So if anybody ever comes up or if you're curious on what that labor market data looks like, feel free to reach out and I'd be glad to provide that to you. Okay, we thought we knew what transition readiness was, and then last legislative session, Senate Bill 158 came and decided to change it. So as far as state accountability, it has not been approved by the Kentucky Board of Education. Their first reading is in August, so coming up. Once they have approved what the statute, what the law in Senate Bill 1 says, then we'll be able to get that out to schools. This will be finalized and communicated out, not by our office, but the Office of Assessment and Accountability. Again, COVID-19, just like last school year, may affect what state school accountability looks like. That will be released by that same office as soon as they really figure that out. So be patient with everything and how fluid it is. You notice that next bullet down, please be aware that career readiness and Perkins federal accountability are not identical. So what that means is when it comes to school accountability currently for transition readiness, dual credit counts. When it comes to Perkins federal accountability, dual credit does not count. It was not part of our state Perkins plan. So if you have students that meet transition readiness, that may not help you when it comes to Perkins. So just be aware of that. They would need to pass an industry cert or an end of program assessment, which we'll talk about our end of program assessment status here in a minute. Schools are still going to be held accountable to Perkins accountability, regardless of what state accountability looks like. One big change you'll see with transition readiness is exceptional work experience no longer counts in transition readiness on the career side. This was really built out for a student that had a lot of experience in automotive, for example, but that school did not have an automotive career pathway. So that student could document using a portfolio-based system to document that they had exceptional work experience in an automotive shop, even though that district didn't offer an automotive career pathway. And that's just an example. That could be that a student, got their private pilot's license, but they weren't an aviation career pathway completer in their district, or maybe their district didn't even have aviation. So that will go away. That doesn't really impact our program. We didn't have any schools using that as far as I know over the past couple of years anyway. Excuse me. Minimum graduation requirements have also changed based on Senate Bill 158. So legislation this past session has made some changes. This will be released from a different office in our agency. The Office of Teaching and Learning will communicate out these changes once they are approved by the board. These will affect the graduation qualifiers and the graduation prereqs. So if you remember, the latest graduation requirements that students had to meet certain benchmarks in order to graduate, and some of that will be changing. Doesn't ultimately affect our program area, but it's always good for you to know graduation requirements for your students to be able to help them and advise them through that. Moving on to end of program assessments and especially pilot assessments. That's what really affects us. That's why I put it in yellow down there towards the bottom. End of program assessments as it relates to track, that first bullet does not apply to us. The second bullet does not apply to us either, but seniors could come back and make up end of program assessments, but we didn't have any on the books, so that doesn't apply to us either. But if you look at that third bullet down, the highlighted one, pilot assessments, which should have happened last spring, but obviously it didn't, in these areas, for us specifically, automation engineering, civil engineering, engineering design, mechanical engineering, we hope to pilot those assessments October 19th through the 30th of this school year. Now, there's a couple caveats you can see down there. Our goal is to pilot those assessments. Schools are encouraged to participate. We do have to have at least 200 students sit for those tests. Otherwise, it's not a valid pilot. The ultimate goal in an optimistic world is we pilot October 19th through the 30th. We have at least 200 students sit and take that test in each of those 4 pathways I mentioned. And then in the spring, those tests can go live, so they would count for accountability purposes. They would also count for the articulated college credit that's aligned to them now. So your students would get college credit if they took it in the spring, not the pilot. The pilot wouldn't count. But if they took that test in the spring after the test has gone live. These tests have to be administered in person. We don't have a virtual option, so that's the big caveat. So if we don't have 200 students sit for these tests, then we can't count them as a successful pilot. We can't do an item analysis on the questions and roll out the real assessment in the spring. So if in October you're in face-to-face classroom environment, please, if you can, assess your students that qualify for those assessments. And that way we can have a successful pilot and we can actually roll those 4 into program assessments out live. The 2 you see as far as pathways go that are missing, which are aerospace engineering and electrical electronics, our goal is to then kind of stagger those. So this fall, we'll start developing questions. Hopefully by the spring, we can pilot, and then next year, those will be live if we have a successful pilot. So 4 hopeful, optimistic end of program assessments coming this spring. I appreciate your patience as we had to retire a COSA test, get a lot of work done, revamp a lot of questions in our standards, and a lot of work had to go into this in order to get to this point. So once again, highly encourage you to assess your students in the pilot. Like I said, it won't count for them, but without that successful pilot, we can't roll these assessments out live. When it comes to eligibility, so I mentioned students have to be eligible. So you can see students do have to be concentrators. What that means in new Perkins 5 language. So forget the word preparatory, forget the word completer. The new word is concentrator. A concentrator is a student that has completed 2 courses or 2 credits. Those are synonymous in our mind. So they may or may not be enrolled in the 3rd course. If you remember the old language, it used to be taken 2 courses enrolled in the 3rd. Now it's just taken 2 courses. So if you have juniors that took engineering 1 and engineering 2, they could technically sit for these pilots or sit for the real test once it's live. Students concentrating on multiple pathways may pilot multiple assessments. So if you have a student that's taken engineering 1 and engineering 2, they technically, if they're in TEDs in multiple pathways, they could take the automation engineering. If you offer that pathway at your school, they could take the engineering design pathway if you offer that at your school. Don't forget, as I'm going through this, because it's hard to read the audience because I can't see or hear you, post in the Q&A if you have any questions. If I confuse you on any of this, get it over there in the question and answer section of Teams, and I'll go through those at the end. New pilot test tickets will be generated for your end of program assessment coordinator, and they're available now. According to this slide, new pilot tests have been generated and are available to your assessment coordinator. Once again, if we don't get 200 students to sit for each of those 4 pilots, we will not be able to consider them a successful pilot. We'll have to repilot in the spring if all goes as planned. So please, if you have students that are taking multiple courses with you, that you offer multiple pathways, you could sit them for multiple assessments, helping us to reach that 200 benchmark. Moving on to dual credit, specifically with EKU, because these statewide dual credits that we currently have. We're always looking for additional partners that would like to offer statewide dual credit. What I mean by that is the teacher in the classroom does not have to be an adjunct professor, that the content is offered online, so we can scale this across the state. So EKU has really stepped up with a variety of courses. We actually have 4 dual credit courses now on the books with EKU. So I'll go through those here just so you realize and understand what they are. So the 4 courses that the first one you can see on your screen, but the other 3, because they all exist under the engineering program umbrella, if your students take any of these 4 courses, it will count towards transition readiness in that dual credit transition readiness indicator. So we have ADM 150. This is actually our largest cohort going into the fall. We have over 30 high school students enrolled in these courses. All 4 courses that I talk about that are with EKU, like I said, are statewide in the sense that the EKU professor is the instructor of record. So you do not have to be an adjunct professor. You don't have to meet SACS requirements. You are simply a facilitator, helping students make sure they turn in their assignments on time, helping them with any questions that maybe the professor didn't cover, or any confusion that may happen with even Blackboard and that sort of thing. The second piece to that, all these classes are completely online using Blackboard as a platform, which makes it very easy for students to log in pretty much at any time during the week and complete weekly modules. So this isn't log in Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. These courses are built out to where each student has a kind of a list or a weekly module that they need to complete each week. And if they want to log in Sunday at 10 o'clock at night and do it, that's great. And if they want to wait until Thursday at midnight or Thursday at 6 a.m., they can complete the work then as well. We also have a drones course. This is offered in the spring. So if you have students interested in taking a drones course, AVN 170 Unmanned Aircraft Systems, this course preps students to pass the FAA remote pilot industry cert. So it's kind of a win-win. Students can get some dual credit, but they can also become commercial drone pilots if they go to an FAA testing site and take that test. Spring semester will come quicker than you think. The deadline to enroll for spring courses at EKU is November. So if you have students that you talk to either in person or virtually this fall that may be interested in taking this course, you need to get them kind of jumping through the hoops relatively quickly as it comes to EKU's enrollment process. Next course, Tech 102, another 3 credit hour course offered in the spring, completely online. This course assumes students have no CAD experience. If they have it, it's just going to be that much easier for them. But this course focuses on how engineers and technicians use CAD to solve problems. So this course we spend, and when I say we, I'm actually the EKU instructor for this course. So we spend the first half going through Onshape and online CAD software, and we spend the second half of the semester using Revit as it relates to an architecture CAD software. Finally, a newer course that we now have on the books. This will probably really fit those of you that are offering the engineering design pathway, even the civil engineering pathway, but all pathway students are eligible, and this would count as a dual credit course for them, regardless of the pathway in our program area. Construction graphics. This class we're moving online into an online environment this spring using AutoCAD. No prior experience required. All the software that I've mentioned, they're all free for student use. So there's not a cost to the software. So that could be Revit or AutoCAD or Onshape. But this class gets students understanding basic residential and small commercial planning styles of architecture. New course, once again, need to be enrolled by November to be ready to roll in Blackboard by January for the spring semester. When it comes to EKU dual credit admissions, one change that I want to draw your attention to, you can see I've struck it out on the screen. Your students do have to be juniors or seniors. They do have to have a 3.0 GPA in high school. They do have to have an ACT score on file. That's the big difference. They used to have a minimum score requirement, you can see there. That has been removed. So now it's just they had to have taken the ACT and a 3.0 GPA at their high school. They need to meet course prereqs or prerequisites. The 4 courses that I mentioned do not have prerequisites, so that doesn't really play a part in what we're talking about on this call. And then high school or districts have to sign an MOA. Most districts have one already because they're offering academic dual credit, but that's something I can look at if you're not sure if your district has that MOA. Dual credit scholarship, work ready scholarship apply to all 4 courses, so your students wouldn't be paying for these courses, the tuition. It would be covered by dual credit scholarships and work ready scholarships. And then finally, you can see there the Study Strong Award. Students will actually earn cash, earn money in additional scholarship dollars if they take dual credit or they submit their AP scores to EKU. They can earn up to $2,400 in scholarship dollars. Keys money, we talked about this last program update, but it's something that I just want to reiterate. Co-op students, if they take 3 credits of CTE approved co-op, they actually get 3 courses counting towards Keys money. So that's pretty important. If you have students doing co-op, they can actually get more credit than they used to. It used to be just co-op counted as 1 course, but now it actually counts for the credits count as the courses, so they're now equal. Another change in Keys as it relates to registered apprenticeships is if you have students going through track, they can actually use their Keys money to pay for tuition, they can pay for books, they can pay for uniforms, safety equipment that they may need, travel. That's a big change as well. So if you have students that are interested in those track youth apprenticeships, they can actually use their Keys money to help them with some of the costs associated with that. Moving on to financial literacy and career studies. This is all new as of probably 2 weeks ago. It was approved. You'll see now that there are workplace ethic instruction built into a statute or a law that came out. There's financial literacy that students need to complete 1 or more courses that meet the financial literacy standards. The key there is I did not say they have to take a financial literacy course. So one thing that we're going to start working on as a program area is aligning some of our work to financial literacy standards. So you can go to your administration and say, look, I can offer this class and meet the financial literacy standards. And then that can check that box for that student as far as graduation requirements. Same thing, you can see the last, the regulation, the KAR down there at the bottom, the ILP, students need to have an ILP. Starting in middle school that follows them through high school. Moving on to the NTI Google Classroom. So if you're not a member, once again, the class code you can see on your screen there. Simply just go to classroom.google.com, type in that class code to join our class. You can see all the resources here on your screen. We have resources specific for engineering. We have them specific for safety, specific for aviation, specific for middle school. So if you're not a member of this class, I highly encourage you to join. A lot of what I send out nowadays is just through Google Classroom. So if you're not a member, you're not going to get a lot of the PD opportunities that I send out. Those of you that have posted things in the Google Classroom, I really appreciate it. If you have ideas or resources that you would like to share, simply post them in the classroom or shoot them to me in an email and I'll move them into the right box or the right bucket in Google Classroom. So keep the resources coming, keep using that as a kind of a collaborative tool where you can ask questions, post. A lot of you have been even posting job openings that are offered around the state. So use it how you see fit. Excuse me. This screen is just a couple snapshots so you can see all the resources that we post. We try to post mostly free resources. If they're not free, we'll be right up front with that, so we don't want you to get excited about something and then it's $7,000 to buy it. But a lot of what you see on your screen as far as middle school STEM, engineering resources, teacher resources, most everything is free or maybe a free trial and that sort of thing. So keep those resources coming so I can keep adding those into the Google Classroom and that way they're available to every teacher in the state. The last thing I wanted to talk about are our COVID-19 resources. This is just a quick link page that helps you understand how to safely reopen schools and districts, some post-secondary links as far as it relates to COVID-19. So if you're doing in-person dual credit, you may want to look at some of that. If you're working with KCTCS and your students go to a KCTCS campus, you'll probably want to look at those documents. But anyway, just a resource there, a quick click page for you to use. I did that right in an hour. That was impressive. And I feel like I've half lost my voice because I don't talk very much anymore as you work from home, and unless you're talking to your cat. Anyway, my contact information is on the screen, my cell phone number. Feel free to call or text my email address if you didn't already have that. I do want to go through the question and answers that came in. And then I will end the recording, so those are also included in the recording. So let me pull up the Q&A here. One teacher posted, does this mean we have to participate in chapter events? I'm assuming that relates to TSA or a CTSO as far as Perkins 5 goes. In order to meet Perkins 5 accountability, you have to have an active CTSO chapter that relates to your program area. What active means is not defined. So if you want to dump a bunch of kids into the system, you want to pay dues and then not do anything, that's completely up to you. I personally don't know why you would have a chapter if you didn't do anything with them, but that's completely up to you. Basically, what it'll do is the CTSO state advisors will supply a list of all the active chapters. We'll cross-reference that in TEDS. So you can define the word active however you want to define that. Somebody said I already answered their question about who is eligible to take the pilot test. Good job. You're welcome. Another teacher says we might want to talk to Dr. Claiborne at Murray State about dual credit. Yeah, good point. Murray State has the Racer Academy. The only caveat that I've had, and I'll talk to Danny down there to figure out what exactly they're doing, but as far as scaling statewide, I just want to make sure that it meets those criteria, that you as a teacher don't have to be an adjunct professor. We always run into issues with that. Make sure that it is completely online so it is scalable from Murray all the way to Pikeville. But thanks for bringing that up. I'll reach out to Danny and Murray State on that. Another question that came in, can you elaborate on Perkins 5 accountability? Do you have to have a certain percentage of students that have industry certs or have passed the end of program assessment? Let me go back. I'm not sure I know how to answer that. That may be one that I'll follow up with an email. As far as scope, so the program leads to an industry recognized certificate. Doesn't say how many students have to gain it. It just has to have an industry certificate at the end of the program of studies. As far as scope goes, size doesn't mention industry certificates. Now, as far as quality, let's go back and read over this. Have a post-secondary connection through dual credit, dual enrollment, current agreement, or leads to an end of industry recognized certification. So it doesn't say numbers specifically or a percentage of students, simply that you have to have something available for students to sit for at the end of that program of study that you're offering. So I hope that answers your question. If it didn't, I don't know who posted that. It just says anonymous. If you want to shoot me an email if I didn't answer your question. We are 4 minutes over, which I apologize for. Your certificate will only say 1 hour. I'm sorry, you won't get 64 minutes of credit. If you want to jump off, you're welcome to. I'm going to stay on until everybody jumps off, just in case more questions pop in the Q&A. If you couldn't access the question and answer and you have a question, please shoot me an email or a text or give me a call, and I'll answer that as quickly as I can. The only other thing that I would mention is, like I said, Monday I plan on sending out PD certificates, and I'll also send out the recording as well as this PowerPoint and PDF form so you can click all the links. If you don't receive that on Monday, that means for some reason Teams didn't know you were on the call. So Tuesday, shoot me an email and say, hey, I never got the PD cert, and I'll be happy to send that to you. And I apologize if Teams didn't capture that you were on this call. So with that, feel free to jump off. Those of you that are joining the TSA call, you'll be listening to me again in about an hour and a half. Thank you.